I'm Jerry McWhorter. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Alright, for my senior project, I was pursuing the career of athletic director, or pursuing the career to become an athletic director. I ended up running a 3v3 soccer tournament because I felt that was the best way to, get some experience in the field. Start with this. Let's see. Alright, so like I said, I directed a 3v3 soccer tournament. So the first thing about directing a soccer tournament is field space. So in Georgia, there's probably about 8 to 10 parks. Locally, we have 3 or 4 available parks. All require calling in 2 to 3 months ahead to reserve field space because there's always teams playing in season, whether it's summer, spring, fall, winter. There's always stuff going on, so it can be difficult to acquire field space when needed. Here I'm with my project facilitator. His name is Dan Pedro. He was my club soccer coach, and he's been coaching ever since he was 18 years old, and now he's 35. Dan grew up playing soccer just like I did. He had the same passion, and so he was a good influence for me because he found a way to make a living and support a family when doing something he loved that involves soccer. And that's kind of what I want to do when I get older. I don't want soccer to not be a part of my life. I want to carry it over into the workforce and make a living off of it. So here with Dan, he's helping me set up the dimensions of the field. We're drawing it out on this paper. We came to the field to kind of get a visual of how big it's going to be and how big each field needs to be for the 3v3 because each field is significantly smaller than a full actual regulation field. So yeah, here on the paper we're drawing out where we would place the field or where we would place each individual field because with 3v3 we could fit 6 on one half of the field, which is plenty. So that also helped in reserving field space because we didn't have to reserve the entire field. We only had to reserve half of the field. And then here, when you go to a public park like this, they're not gonna have the 3v3 set up for you. They only have the full size, so you have to get the necessities for it to be able to happen. And so I had to find spray paint because I wasn't sure if I was going to use paint or cones to set up the fields, and I ended up using cones because I had the correct number of cones, so I didn't want to mess up the fields. I also use cones to cover up holes on the grass because you don't want people spraining their ankles or stepping in anything, so they're good indicators. Be careful if something's here. And then I also had to provide balls for the tournament because obviously without balls you can't play. Here's an interaction with Dan. We talked for a little while about when we were going to meet and where we were going to do it and just discuss things like that because he has a job too, so a lot of this was done over the phone. Here I'm at Woodstock's practice field and I'm just kind of setting up a smaller version of it, and I just made it down to proportion so that I could just have a visual idea for what I wanted to do when it actually came to the day to have the tournament. So here. This was at the end. This is the last picture that we took together. He came. We talked about the success of it and talked about what we learned, and we learned that like I said, you have to call 2 months ahead. You have to be prepared. You can't procrastinate in doing this, and we thought we got a lot out of it. And then for my research paper, I ended up, there's not a lot you can research about running a tournament, but in terms of my career as being an athletic director, there's kind of two sides of it. There's the field work of it, being out on the field and actually running the tournament, and then there's also the administrative side of it, where that's hiring employees, that's getting the word out via like social media, email, on the website, all that side of it. So my product was an example of the field work that an athletic director would have to do, and then my research paper was kind of the administrative side of things. So yeah, for my research paper, I talked about preferential admissions, which in the soccer world, it's very easy for a college coach to allow a player to come, provide scholarship solely based on athletics, even if they aren't as strong in the classroom as they should be. Like for example, McWhorter's is one of the #1 soccer programs in the country, and they're also the #1 academic school as well for soccer, like as an overall team. Like they have the highest team GPA in the country. But you have this athlete who's got the perfect physical attributes to it, but in the classroom he has a 2.0 GPA. So as an athletic administrator or an athletic director for a college, for example, you have to be mature enough to understand that this player, he's really good, he could really help my team win, but all in all, is it going to be healthy for the kid in terms of the schoolwork? Because if they can't pass the schoolwork, then it affects them mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because if they can't when you're in the #1 team in the country and you're in Division I, they expect you to come out and perform 100% every single game. And if you're not doing that, then it's hard to do that when you're struggling in the classroom. Your mind's racing. You can't perform up to the standard that you would like to play at. Go back here. So for my product, I ended up renting out Hoggood Park. This was a really good place because it had a lot of field space. I started the tournament around 10:30, 11, so that I could make sure and ensure that I had the field space that I needed. Here's some pictures of the tournament. We ended up having 6 teams come, so it was 18 people in total. It was a really good turnout. It's some of the challenges that I faced with this was obviously getting the word out, and obviously getting people to commit, because some people commit and then end up flaking and not actually showing up. But we had a good turnout, which made the tournament very successful, and I'm really grateful for all these people that came out. So for my college, I've committed to go to Lee University. I'm playing soccer there. I'm an academic and soccer scholarship, and I plan to major in sports management, which will help me become an athletic director. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. Is there any questions?
What problems did you have during the tournament and during this process?
During the tournament, some of the issues that I faced with ball shagging, one of the mistakes I made is I set the fields up kind of in the middle of the field and without anywhere blocking out balls that went out of bounds. So while they were playing, if a ball got kicked out of bounds, I could have brought more balls so that we could have backups so that they could keep the flow of play going. So if a ball got kicked out of bounds, they would have to go down and chase it, or I was kind of always running around trying to get as many balls because I brought 6 or 7, which was a good amount, but I could have brought more. And then another problem was acquiring field space anywhere else, because this is a public park, so I didn't necessarily have to pay to have this for a certain amount of time, I could just come out and just take the field. I tried to call other places where I trained with my club team, and they were like, no, you haven't called early enough. So that was something I learned as well. And I learned that in life you can't procrastinate, especially in the workforce, because it'll come back and bite you.
So, how did you get the word out with trying to?
Excuse me. How did you try to get the word out with people coming in, like trying to participate in your tournament?
I tweeted it very often. I DM'd as many people as I could. I had group messages with the soccer world. Like, I've come to meet a lot of people, so I tried to get the word out that way. I also emailed people. I had my coach email kids and say that if they want to come out, they can play. So it was good. All right, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.